Hello.
Hello.
Kinsey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can, just fine. Hello.
Hello.
Although I have the Google the YouTube live stream going on, so that's.
I was like, oh, that sounds like my voice that I hate hearing on recording.
We're gonna get in an endless loop here before too long. I'm setting up that live stream right now. I want to paste it to the ACT website. And then we've got plenty of time before the session, but we can take a little time to check in and see what's on your mind and your colleagues' minds about how we can help make everything go.
Cool. Sounds good. This is my first kind of big online presentation, so.
Well, we are looking forward to it. We're excited.
Yeah,
about it.
I appreciate the tech support. That's helpful.
No problem. We're all figuring that whole thing out right now, and I think we got a good plan for it. Let's hope the plan goes as planned.
Yes, agreed.
And let me just make sure that that link would take me where I want it to. Let's hope the plan. Okay. All right. Additionally, the YouTube live stream is on about like a 25-second delay, which is a little bit of a delay. It's not far off, but the things you are doing live, if anyone is in the YouTube live stream, will take about 25 seconds to get to YouTube. So for what it's worth.
Okay.
I'm seeing as well, there are two other individuals in the waiting room, Ed McGee and Jacob Gerwert. Are those folks you know, or are they just early sign-on?
Jacob he's one of our research assistants.
Would you like me to add him, or do you want me to wait and add him with the whole group?
Yeah, maybe just hold off for a minute until.
Sure. No problem.
We're trying to get the Google things. Actually, I'm gonna just.
No problem at all.
Call. Let's see.
And Kinsey, remind me, when the time comes, we're also looking for Allison Graff and Ray Loftus, correct?
Yes, they should be signing in here pretty soon.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that's who I have on my list, but
Yep.
just in case.
And then we'll have Jacob Gerwert and then Jordan Holmes are our research assistants. So they'll be on monitoring the groups.
Okay, great.
I'm getting a whole bunch of buzzes on my phone.
You're now muted. You started saying something, but then
I'm on the phone with Allison. We were trying to get we were gonna have a Google Meet chat going so that we could talk to our RAs. And so we were trying to figure that out. So that was her. But yeah, just give me like a couple minutes and I'll be right back.
it seems they've just joined the Zoom meeting. So we, for what you all can chat here if you like.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you all doing?
Good.
So let's see. We've got our three authors in the room. So we can check in on some of the more technical aspects of things in just a moment. But if there's anything you all want to check in on right now for sort of like your setup purposes, go for it. Pretend I'm not here. Yeah.
Okay. Did we figure out the Google thing?
No.
Okay.
What's the Google thing?
Let's see. So have them add you first. That should help. So apparently if you go ahead and add me, so my Google is healthyaginglabnky@gmail.com.
Add you on the Hangouts.
Yeah, apparently that helped Jacob.
What is it? Can you say that again?
Hold on, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, you've been added.
Okay.
Hello.
I'll point out our author team is sorting out some things on their technical side of things. We will soon give them our side of the whole argument in just a minute.
Gotcha. I just figured I'd hop in just to make sure everything
Yep.
was going okay.
Everyone else who's on here is I'm part of conference staff in one form or another. These aren't just a whole bunch of strangers. Just
Oh, I was hoping for strangers.
you'll get they'll come. They're coming.
I mean, I'm strange, but you know. No.
Well, thank you all for contributing to obviously putting together a conference in less than ideal circumstances.
We're trying to figure the whole thing out, and yeah.
So Tom, I started today at your old stomping grounds
Where? What?
at Kennesaw State.
You are at Kennesaw State?
I am. Well, so I took a research position there, and I'm hoping to move into the psych department. So I'm working in the office of research right now.
Okay. Are you able to teach at this point, or is your job restricted at this point?
No, I think so. Dr. McNamara, Corinne McNamara, she is very motivated to get me teaching.
We'll have to.
Everybody see that?
Yep.
Just real quick, checking in.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I should say I can also post those slides in the chat after we've enrolled everyone. So
Great.
Is this all of the presenters and you and Tyler?
and Lindsay is on as well. Yes, this is our three authors.
I'm going to take another screen capture and I'm going to just put my thing on the STP logo. So
Okay.
everyone, if you would not mind looking at the camera, smiling. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I got it.
All right. Thanks, Tom. All right, so let's see.
Very great. Move with that one.
All right, to our author colleagues, is now a good time for us to check in on some of the ins and outs of our technical side of things, or are you still tweaking something here or there?
Go ahead. I think we are okay.
Okay. So here's what we've got. We've got a Zoom meeting room that I believe can house up to 300 individuals. We may or may not have more than 300 individuals. It makes it easier if we have less than 300 individuals. But on the chance that we have more, we also are connected with a YouTube live stream channel, the link of which is posted in on the STP webpage, and additionally is something that we can send as a link to our waiting room if more people show up. We, if you wish, can help with, for example, monitoring the chat in the Zoom meeting room, sort of the big picture chat. If you go into breakout rooms and you've got 20 breakout rooms, of course we can't monitor all those, but we can do the main chat here. The same goes with the YouTube live stream. We can monitor that chat. And I would say that if that is a feature that you would like for us to have involvement with, one of the pathways through which we might do it is we might have a little chain event where someone monitors the YouTube chat and then posts it into the Zoom chat, and then we do with it what we wish here. I'd add, if you wish, you could have someone like me or Tyler or Lindsay. If you would like for us to say, hey, a question has come up in the chat, and to sort of like stop you, we can do so, or we can leave it to you, whatever you like. So what do you think? Do you anticipate a lot of activity in the chat throughout the presentation? If so, do you want our assistance with that? What's on your mind?
I think we kind of divvied up some roles already in terms of being able to monitor, but an extra set of hands in case there's something that we miss might be helpful. Specifically in the YouTube chat, just because it may be sort of off time or off our radar in the moment, right, when we're
Sure.
presenting. Our goal was, though, to have our folks pop into the breakout rooms if that is something that we are capable of doing.
Yep.
And we each have it kind of divvied up in terms of accessing that.
Okay.
Um,
I'm happy to give you access to the breakout rooms. I can make someone a host. Who would like to serve as the host?
I was gonna do the consolidating of the stuff, so it would maybe make more sense for one of you guys to be the host. Or
would you be good with that?
Yeah.
So Ray's gonna, I'll give Ray the host access.
Thank you.
All right.
When it
I'm
comes
gonna make
to,
you, I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry,
make you
go ahead.
co-host. Ray, are you able right now to access things like breakout rooms in the bottom portion as co-host?
I am not.
No, so I think
Yeah.
I've got to make you host, but
Okay.
it's also occurring to me that our recording is currently paused, but we do want to do a recording. So
Gotcha.
let me make you host.
Okay.
And I don't know, let's see. It looks like I do still have capability of recording, so I'll record
Okay.
once that's good to go. Okay. Other questions that you all have, other things you'd like us to do and be involved in?
This is kind of our first time doing this, so
It's a
maybe
tough
I know what
question.
questions to
Well,
ask.
Okay, and I would say this as well. So you see Tyler, you see Lindsay and I, you're seeing our faces and all of that. If at any point during the thing you want our help, we don't have to be so formal about this. You could say, hey, Jordan, could you help me with this? And I will be happy to, or put it in the chat, privately if, anyway, we're here if you need us.
Awesome. And we are capable of posting links into the chat, right? That would go to everybody.
Yes, yeah.
Normal Zoom
It
functioning.
should work as normal. Anything that goes in the chat goes to
Oh.
everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
Can-
We do
can I-
have.
Oh, sorry.
We do have so for our breakout rooms, we essentially have a Google slide. I don't know if anybody was on the STP small changes workshop over summer, but they paired it with a set of slides where the people in breakout rooms could fill those out to kind of keep track of what they're doing. And then we're having somebody who's monitoring that to bring it back into the group when we get together.
Sounds great.
So we had sort of planned on doing that.
Were
Well,
you expecting this to be a bit more interactive or sort of presentation and questions at the end? Because what I might recommend, if it is going to be a little bit more interactive, maybe having people utilize the reactions if they have something to say. Because Zoom is definitely, I just did it right now. We start, we get, especially with 300 people in here, we might get a lot of them talking.
So we do have a pretty, the first 20 minutes or so is going to be us kind of laying out the groundwork for what we've done and our approach, with the idea that then we do want to open it up and have it be more interactive for the remaining bit, with us kind of coming back in and recapping what we're hearing and allowing people to ask questions and things of that nature.
Do you prefer that their questions be in the chat and then you'll respond that way? I know that's a little awkward, but I'm trying to think of the least amount of chaos, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I think 300 people and looking at looking through, if
A lot too.
definitely right. That ticker is going to be keeping rolling, and so
Yeah.
that may be difficult for us to stay on top of. I don't know if it's going to be any better for us to be able to see the reactions from 300 people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Obviously, it's a
know. I
visual
don't know how
cue.
much more it helps, if at
So-
all.
So let me, something is occurring to me now, and I'm glad we're here to chat about this. Ray, I've made you the host, but
Mhm.
that also means that I am not in control of the wait list, which is probably not good. Like that should probably be something that I keep an eye on.
You make
Are
a
you all will later be going into breakout rooms, correct? That's at sort of a later point in the presentation?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
How about I ask for host status back and then
Sure.
send it your way when you are ready for that?
Perfect.
It seems I might,
Absolutely.
yeah, it seems I can just reclaim it. Okay, cool.
Will Ray be the only one who is capable of going into breakout rooms, or will we all have that capability?
As far as I know, it's always just the singular host that has that, unless Zoom has just changed things. I don't know if Tyler has other experiences.
Yeah, I don't, whenever you're setting up those breakout rooms, is there I know there's an ability to just sort of randomly put people in a certain amount. But there may be a box that you can check where you can manually put yourself into certain rooms. And if that's the case, then anybody could switch back and forth. So that may be one workaround. You may have, I mean, I can't imagine like people are just going to be bouncing around, sort of.
I will add as well. Hey, Tyler, can you, I mean, as of right now, we have 34 people in the waiting room. We're still early. I'm wondering, Tyler, can you attend to the YouTube live stream? It may be the case that,
Absolutely.
you know, we get
Be
far
one
fewer than 300
workaround.
individuals. And if that's the case, then, you know, then you could maybe sort of keep that on mute, but make your way back to the Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely.
but,
If we look like we're gonna fill up, I'll bounce out, and then
Alright.
that'll open up a slot.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And I'll keep it on the YouTube anyways, just in the background on mute.
And I'm going to add you as a co-host as well. In fact, I'm gonna do that for everyone who's in here right now, just for fun. All right. Anything else coming to our mind? We've got a couple of minutes before we will.
Look, it looked like as a co-host, I can admit people in from the rating room.
Can we add Jordan and Jacob? Jordan Holmes and Jacob Gerwert should be probably in the waiting room by now.
I'm bringing them in.
Cool.
Jordan Holmes, Jacob. No, I saw Jacob. Where's that name again? Oh, there it is. All right, so just admitting them in right now.
Hi, Jordan.
Not me.
Looks like we already have 10 people watching the YouTube stream.
So they're watching this happen right now, actually.
Yeah, they're behind the curtain right now.
They are.
Amazing.
Don't say anything regrettable because people will be on the YouTube live stream.
Hey, YouTube.
Perfect. I like that everyone just went silent then. We were like, okay, yeah.
So we are right at the hour. Should we bring people in from the waiting room? And as a supplemental question, at what point would you like to begin? Like, do you want to give it a minute? Do you want to give it 2 minutes? You know, just as people file in at the hour, what do y'all think?
I think a couple minutes, but then we can go ahead and jump in and they can just catch up when they get here.
All right. All right. So I'm going to bring folks in from the waiting room. I'll say just a couple of words and we'll say we'll begin in just a moment. Okay. All righty, welcome everyone. Good to see you all. For those who don't know me, I'm Jordan Troisi, Director of the Annual Conference on Teaching, ACT, now a virtual ACT. Good to see you all. We'll start our first session in just a moment. We're going to give people a chance to filter in. So in just a moment, we'll hand it over to our colleagues, Kinsey, Allison, and Ray. But we'll stay right here just for another minute or two, and then we'll begin. posted the slides into the chat, and I believe we'll be going through those later, but if you would like a copy of those are there. All right. Well, what do you think for our colleagues, the authors? Ready to go?
Yep, I think so.
All right, take it away. Let us know if you need anything.
All right, so welcome everyone. Today we are going to discuss our project on mapping successful and sustainable diversity initiatives across multiple levels of the institution. So this project was initiated by Dr. Graff and I as part of an internal equality, diversity, and inclusion grant that was available within our college. We're the two newest early career faculty in our department, and so we're brainstorming about what we wanted our future to look like in our department and kind of what steps we could take now to make those changes in our curriculum and climate to kind of make moves forward on that. So our hope is that this workshop and presentation will provide kind of a basic foundation that helps inform your own pursuits of similar goals at your institutions. Oh, I don't know. Can I advance forward or do you have to advance forward? Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so before we get started, we just want to briefly introduce ourselves. One of the strengths of our team here is that we come from a variety of backgrounds, and so we bring a lot of different expertise to the table. So we'll get into more of kind of the benefits of that later on in the presentation. But to start, I'm Kinsey Bryant-Lees, and my background is in industrial organizational and human factors psychology. In general, my research focuses on improving and diversifying our measurement approaches in psychology, and specifically as they relate to organizations, and then also more broadly looking at workplace discrimination and other diversity issues.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Allison Graff, and I'm an assistant professor at Northern Kentucky University. My training is in lifespan development. I specifically focus on the later end of the lifespan and have focused on things such as ageism, attitudes towards sexual health and well-being, among other things. Part of the strengths between Dr. Bryant-Lees and I have definitely been, I come from a contextualist background, so I very much understand the importance of history and different layers of context in which we may be influenced and how those layers may intersect to influence development across the lifespan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ray Loftus. I have my background as in educational leadership. So I was at NKU when we collaborated on this project. I was working in student affairs and in particular for our Center for Student Inclusiveness. I have since transitioned to the University of Kentucky. And so my background is in diversity, education, and inclusion, education in sort of organizational and systemic trainings.
So we want to take a moment also to recognize our two research assistants who are on. These are students who are also funded by our grant funding. And so Jacob Gerwert is an undergraduate student at Northern Kentucky University. He is in his senior year. And Jordan Holmes just joined our team. She is in her first year of our MSIO, Masters of Science and Industrial Organizational program at Northern Kentucky University. So a little bit of an overview of how things are going to work and sort of where we're coming from with this. So we are going to spend some time giving you an idea of the process that we have gone through, with the idea that by outlining this process, the hope is that you can sort of use some of these insights to apply to your own institutions. The workshop, this is based on, or sort of our workshop here, stemmed from our insights originally when we were thinking about this fellowship grant. And so both Dr. Bryant-Lees and I recognize the value of inclusive teaching, but we wanted to find ways to broaden our reach. So for instance, collaborating with Dr. Loftus in the Center for Student Inclusiveness allowed us to expand from just our own individual classrooms. The idea there then was, what are our goals and how can we create change that is necessary in our institution, but that is also sustainable? So in partnership with Dr. Loftus and Dr. Bryant-Lees, we set out for 3 goals in our grant. The first of which was essentially to create a process to assess our climate, both within our department and our curriculum. The second thing was to be able to sort of maximize the development of our courses and any sort of curriculum additions that were being added to create a sense of belonging for diverse students and enhance global awareness. And our third goal was to inform others of this process and how this may look to create change that is lasting, sustainable, and necessary. With those particular goals in mind, the translation then into today's learning objectives are seen on the screen. So we want to give you some ideas of what are frameworks that you can use to organize diversity initiatives. How can we discuss what commonalities or differences we see in our institutions and maybe troubleshoot together how to navigate some of those challenges, and then identify manageable steps, because right now I'm sure we're all feeling a little taxed, a little pressured in our day-to-day lives. And so how can we do this so that it's manageable and it's not the straw that breaks the camel's back?
Unmute myself here. So a little bit about our theoretical and empirical basis for sustaining this change. Before jumping into our kind of assessment and curriculum development process, we conducted a pretty comprehensive literature review, and the review spanned across multiple disciplines. So to name a few: IO, organizational change, teaching, higher education, and student engagement. So we knew that this was a pretty kind of multifaceted endeavor that we were taking on, and it was important to kind of get the perspectives from each of those fields to get a full picture. For the sake of time, we won't spend too much time here discussing the specific findings. We'll kind of keep it to a broad level overview and focus primarily on the theories and the multi-level process model that we use to guide our development of our assessment and needs analysis. So this process model here on the right of the slide is from Nishi, 2017, I believe. And as you can see, there's a lot going on here. From the IO literature, we know that large-scale organizational change, particularly those related to diversity, are complex and multifaceted and fail most of the time. So there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it is due to kind of this ambiguity in terms of what we're actually measuring, what are the outcomes of interest and how are we tracking those. Oftentimes they also kind of fall short because of the Band-Aid fixes, as I like to call them. They have good intentions, but poor implementation or kind of a limited scope. So kind of pulling together all the literature, there are kind of several key components that do tend to make these initiatives more successful. The first one is that it's important to recognize that diversity change is not a one-size-fits-all off-the-shelf program or approach. So a lot of the research and the organizational literature looks at diversity trainings. And so especially within the context of a university setting, it's important to kind of expand on not just a one-day training, but we want to infuse this into the curriculum and also kind of consider all of the aspects of the climate that need to be assessed in the initial kind of creation of the foundation of where we're starting from. So with this in mind, what variables and constructs should be assessed for each of the processes involved? In our case, in the psychology department, we wanted to look at the kind of university and department level context. So things like the strategic plan, university level diversity goals, department level and college level diversity goals and initiatives. And then also look at the espoused versus exacted practices, both by the university level as well as the kind of department and individual faculty level. So looking at what are the motivational factors at play? How can we educate and reduce the barriers for our faculty? And then also kind of the final element of this is looking at the student level. So we now know, and if we collect data on this espoused and exacted practices, what are the perceptions of students? So what are students' perceptions of these practices? What are students' perceptions of the department climate? And then also motivational factors and reactions related to the students. The second kind of key component is collaboration, which we kind of already spoke to a bit, but I want to just reiterate that partnering beginning in the early planning stages with Dr. Loftus was critical to our success. The third is the measurement, right? So that is kind of, you'll see that throughout this, right? We need to track our process as well as kind of keeping in mind our outcomes of interest. And part of this is it takes a lot of time to properly plan. And then also kind of monitoring and figuring out how you're going to measure that throughout the trajectory of your timeline. Then the final element is to just think bigger and deeper. So a lot of times one of those Band-Aid fixes that's proposed is bringing in more diverse faculty staff and or recruiting a more diverse student body. While this is important, it's not enough on its own. So in order to create sustainable change, you have to kind of dig deeper and address the structural and cultural climate and like other issues that might create future barriers. We'll move to the next slide. So this is kind of just expanding a bit more on this. This chart kind of helps us conceptualize how we might assess these various elements of change in a systematic and multi-level way. So Gonzalez 2010, the citations there at the bottom, proposes these kind of three categories of elements: the demographic, cultural, and political. Each of these have to be considered across the various levels of the organization. In this case, we can think of the university as the organization, and then the departments, and ours, the psychological science department specifically in this case, would be nested within that as the group level, with faculty in the department being kind of the focus for the measurement component of the assessment on that level. And then the third level is the individual level or the student level. So students thinking about them nested within the department and university. Next is kind of considering what are the change outcomes that we're interested in. So this chart has kind of broad categories of change outcomes, but kind of thinking more specifically about what are the most relevant for each element at each level and how will we measure them. And then finally, this is kind of like the often overlooked part of this process, because it's the hardest in my opinion, is like, what does this implementation actually look like? And are we doing a good job kind of monitoring the implementation? So there's kind of, in Gonzalez's article, he lays out these specific change dynamics that can occur. And what you want is to have positive change dynamics. The negative and the neutral even can create huge setbacks for organizations and can sometimes actually cause more harm than good if they're not kind of dealt with immediately and monitored appropriately.
So when we look at and consider not only how we take this work into our departments, into our offices or with our colleagues, but also considering what it means when you collaborate across your institution and when you sort of break down some of those divides that might be in your organization. And so we wanted to highlight some of those challenges, either challenges that we faced or some challenges to lift up that you might experience in taking this work back to your organization. And so one of the challenges is just a difference in our cross-divisional cultures, the histories, the resources, what our priorities are. Coming from student affairs and collaborating with academic affairs, if any of you at your institution know, sometimes there's a divide there, and different priorities that are given to this work. Coming from the Center for Student Inclusiveness, it was my highest priority was to make sure that our students who have marginalized identities feel welcome and included on campus, and to create programming for that. That was a high priority. But when Dr. Graff and Dr. Bryant-Lees were coming at this, they were really eliciting buy-in from their departments through this grant. Also, organizational hierarchies, they can equate to varying levels of priority. So who do you need approval from, and how can you use this work as a way to leverage for that approval that meets the priorities of your department, in the hopes that everyone on your team or in your department would agree that this is a priority. Feelings of mistrust or egos, which I know we don't deal with in higher education at all, or feelings of ownership. So especially with collaboration, how we give up some of that control, and how we learn to trust folks across divisions in a way that makes this work really meaningful, and make sure that all parties that are involved in this collaboration are getting back as much as they're putting in. Structural inequities across divisions, which happens at all organizations, but that can be really challenging for collaboration just in general. And so relationship building around those, and knowing what you have and what you bring to the table, what others have and what they're bringing to the table, to find that balance of equity even at the table that you're starting this work from, in a collaborative way. And then a collaboration in the time of dual pandemics. So COVID-19, which has even changed the way that we're having this conference and giving this presentation now, in the ways that Dr. Graff and Dr. Bryant-Lees and I have shifted online with the help of Jordan and Jacob to provide this online. But also structural institutional racism and the impact and the weight of both of these pandemics on folks can make it hard to collaborate, asking of more energy, asking of more time, asking to challenge more systems, which has always been an issue, but doubling that with COVID could be a larger issue in the context of this presentation.
So oftentimes when we're thrown a lot of theory and frameworks and challenges, it's easy to get bogged down, right? So our goal is to help you start thinking about what might this look like at your institution and where would be good starting points. Chances are you are pretty familiar with the size and the budgeting mechanisms that are present. And so those represent some contextual features that are obviously going to influence how this may look at your institution. Reports and statistics in terms of the composition or the breakdown of your faculty or your student body, those are easy to come by. But some of the things that we've already started to talk about, so those espoused practices, where can you look to find those? And so one of the easiest places to start is with your mission statement. Is diversity and inclusivity emphasized within that statement? Strategic plans for your institution. And so if you don't know where those live, talk to a more advanced colleague or dig around on your university's website and you will come across those documents. Any sort of department materials, including your curriculum. One of the most blatant things that Dr. Bryant-Lees and I had noticed about our curriculum is that we didn't have any diversity and inclusion type courses that were in our department, which is odd for a psychology department. And while it may be happening in individual coursework, that is also hard to assess and hard to monitor across time. RPT guidelines. And so if we're talking about what is valued, is it in your promotion and tenure materials in terms of whether that is something that is going to be celebrated and valued? Retention and recruitment plans. So go ahead and hit up admissions and talk to them about, do they have these types of policies or goals present? Internal funding calls. So Dr. Bryant-Lees and I saw that there was a funding call in which this was being valued. Money was being put behind this to support this type of initiative. And so you can get a sense of what your university or institution values just by kind of hitting up those resources. But then the question becomes, how about the implementation? And do we see that follow through? And so it may be one thing to say, this is something that we value. And then if the practices that are implemented don't necessarily align with that, that could be problematic. And so what are some ways that you can look at that? So the first thing is just look within your department. So look at your curriculum, look at those particular pieces, see if there's follow through, look at syllabi in your department to look for, instances where maybe there is something that's missing that should be included in that syllabi to make it more inclusive. Look beyond your department. And so that sometimes is, depending on the structure of your institution, you may be siloed. And so how do you sort of reach out or extend those olive branches? And that may look like looking at other departments and creating and looking for allies in those departments. It could look like going beyond your academic unit. And so, for instance, reaching out to student affairs and bridging some of those connections there. Looking beyond your present moment. And so once again, as a developmentalist, we talk about things like cohort effects and how the history that has accumulated at your institution, both in terms of the general history of the institution, but also the history of diversity initiatives at your institution, could very much be coloring the perception of people in terms of, oh, is this just another thing that we're saying and not really doing? So making sure that that is another point of consideration. Asking questions when the intel isn't necessarily lining up with what is the proposed value or initiative. So ask that of students, ask that of colleagues, ask that of your staff, your administration, because all of those individuals contribute to the makeup of your institution. Lastly would be the idea of, okay, well, are there assessment? Are there articulated goals? And can we demonstrate progress on those goals? So something as simple as asking, has a climate survey been done in my institution? And what are the results? Can we look at the historical background? And so can we go back year over year and see change in those results? Specific assessments. And so if you have a specific diversity initiative that is being launched, what are the markers or indicators that that's being successful? And once again, this isn't saying that you have to have all of that knowledge, but by asking these questions and starting to move forward, you are better able to then start identifying barriers, allies, and pathways of collaboration. So along that same token, one of the things that we would like to invite you to do is to begin thinking about these things. And this is going to be the focus of our breakout session that we're going to have here in a moment. In looking through those materials, and given that you haven't had the opportunity to do that, but you may be aware at some level, right? Chances are if you're sitting in on this particular Zoom meeting that you have a vested interest in creating sustainable change at your institution. So what can you identify in terms of barriers, allies, and pathways? And how does that maybe look different depending on the type of institution that you're in? We can all agree that there's going to be issues with time and funding, that there may be issues in terms of leadership, but it may look different. So let me give you some examples to kind of get the juices flowing here, right? So in terms of barriers, if we think about leadership, so leadership at a small school may be very dispersed and horizontal as opposed to vertical. How you approach then leadership to talk about change initiatives may look different than if you are at a larger institution with a very transparent but hierarchical structure where now you have layer upon layer of bureaucracy that you need to transcend in order to create or shift change. In terms of allies, so if we think about allies in the community, right? So take for instance, does your institution have a good reputation in your community? Is there evidence of there being collaboration between your institution and the community? Or has that been restricted historically for whatever reason? You may be in a very rural sort of circumstance, and so the community is more spread out and dispersed. How do you foster communication in those settings? That may look different in terms of identifying allies within your community and going beyond the campus setting. Pathways for collaboration, once again, thinking about how does that past contribute to where we are? How does present ongoing initiatives contribute to where you're at? And what do you want to see for the future? So that being able to look and sort of assess across that timeline is going to be helpful in terms of anticipating where you may have the most success. So as we mentioned, we would like to have everybody kind of join in the fun here. And so what we are going to do is we are going to provide a link in the chat to a Google document. And so you'll have to access this before we go into our breakout groups. The idea is to get into these groups, introduce yourselves, fill in some information. And so you're going to be asked, you know, what type of school are you at? What's your instructor type? Your name, first names are fine. Introduce yourself to your group so that you can feel a little bit comfortable with them, and then proceed through this list of questions and highlight.
There's my car.
Highlight the.
I'm gonna find you a cup.
Oops. All right, so hopefully they found their cup. Highlight the allies and pathways to success. So what things have been successful at your institution, and go from there. What diversity initiatives have been tried and where have they met with barriers? So kind of troubleshooting or thinking through that. And then if you could come up with a wish list of like things for your diversity initiative, what would that look like? And keep in mind, we all want more time. We all want more money. That's blanket, but think beyond those things. So on the Google slide, go ahead and take some notes in terms of what your group is discussing. And then we're going to come back and collate those discussions and join together and allow you to ask some questions about how you're processing this information. All right, so Jordan, if you could help us put people into breakout rooms.
You're muted, Jordan, if you meant.
I know. Here I am. Would you like, I'm happy to just randomly assign folks to breakout groups unless you have a more elaborate structure you'd like. How large would you like the breakout rooms? Let's see, we've got about 40 people in total.
Sure.
5? All right. We will get about 4 to 5 per group. All right, here they go. All right. Many individuals have now been assigned and moved into breakout groups. Some individuals not yet joined. We've got, this includes our 2 of our co-hosts here are not joined in groups, and we can figure out what we will do with all of that.
You can leave me out. I just jumped in to listen to the talk and I guess I missed it. So it's all good.
We're now moving in breakout groups and discussing diversity initiatives on campus. Jacqueline, we can certainly slide you into one of these groups.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Let's see, do I have you on there? It looks like I think maybe we put you in the direction of one of them. I'm trying to find that right now. Yeah, group 7, feel free to join if you see a link for the breakout room 7. There we go. For our presenters, how's it going? Anything you need? What do you all need to do? What can we help with?
I think we're all set.
Can you get Jordan, Ray, and I access to go into different breakout rooms?
That would be good. Let me see. I think
He can send you to certain ones, but you won't have the ability to go in and out, at will. So you'd have to function as like a regular participant.
Okay.
How can I?
You could always go into one and then
Leave.
back
Leave.
out, and then he
That's
can
true.
put you in another one.
Mhm.
That might be a good plan.
That is true. And right now, Jacob was assigned to breakout room 1. Jordan was assigned to breakout room. Where are you? I don't know. 5. If you all want to head that way and then come back, and then we can send you to another one. I'm going to mute very quickly and see what's happening on the YouTube live stream,
Perfect.
because that is a curiosity.
I've had it up the whole time. There's 10. There's 10.
For anyone who is joining us on YouTube, you are welcome to, as you're thinking about these same questions, you're welcome to post that in the chat, and we would be happy to bring that back into, and be sure to talk about that as part of the call today. Or you can also post questions that you have in the chat on YouTube too, and we can do the same thing, just make sure that we're pulling from both areas. You're muted, Jordan, if you were talking to us.
I was, thank you. Tom of the Colorful Logo, STP is executive director, has just asked, what happens to the YouTube live stream when breakout rooms occur? It stays in the Zoom room. So if individuals are there, we are still on their screen. We are not in a private space.
They are seeing what is behind the scenes.
Uh-huh.
That's why I thought it would be helpful for us to know that. So I think it was Ray who suggested that they could do something in the chat so that they can still participate. And I think that's something helpful for future presenters to also be aware of.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether Tyler or someone else wants to edit the recording that we do for the future. We could probably remove this section for people or at least bookmark it so that they can move to the next session quickly.
Yes, I think I will pause the recording for now. Might have thought that I would have thought to do that sooner. Here we are.
What happens now? Why don't you look at YouTube and see what happens when you pause?
Oh, well,
Oh, that's separate.
I'll know in yes. So I think it will continue. Might have thought that I would have.
Jacob would like to go to breakout room 2.
Jordan, would you send me to a breakout room too, please, that hasn't been?
Yeah,
So
and I'm
it's-
also learning, I think I've been admitting some people, and I wonder if I did not mute people upon admit, so I don't know that that's something I need to know. So we can avoid the possible interruptions.
Mhm.
Although the cups was great.
So yes, I have confirmed that the YouTube live stream continues in this fashion, even if we have our Zoom meeting paused. I'm learning a lot.
So bear with us, folks. This is a new world for all of us.
Yes, I am now broadcasting that message to YouTube live stream. I'm learning a lot. I hope you are getting a good laugh out of this experience. I'm glad I'm not on YouTube in any bigger way. Oh boy. Well, Stephanie's joining.
Yeah.
I'll get her into a breakout room.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie. We're working in breakout rooms right now. You want to go to one? Oh, you're muted, Stephanie.
I'm sorry that I was late. This was as soon as I could get on, but I would love to join a breakout room if it's not disruptive.
You're on your way. There's so many windows open right now.
You have a lot of power there, Jordan.
If only I knew how to wield it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't mind showing my face. I just prefer having the STP logo.
I heard you were gonna get a tattoo of that, but then COVID happened, so you didn't.
It sort of looks like a COVID virus particle molecule. So,
Had we been brainstorming the logo 3 years later, we would have said no.
Hey, Jordan, could you reassign me?
Sure. Where do you want to go?
Do you know which rooms have been taken?
I don't. Let's see. I believe that Jordan was in 5, and I don't know that she's moved. Ray is in 4. Let me put you into 3.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
another suggestion, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Not certain. Yesterday they had a nice little timer for breakout sessions that enabled us to know in the main room when people would be returning. That might be helpful for the YouTube people so that they know that it will go live again at some point.
That is a good point. Do we know how long before we go live again? Kinsey, any thoughts?
Probably about, I think we had talked about leaving 10 minutes or so. We go till 2, right? So maybe like 5-ish more minutes.
All right, to our friends who might be in the YouTube live stream right now, about 9 more minutes, and then we will join back in the live session. I'll see if I can go find a good 8-minute timer somewhere and share that screen.
Yeah.
Jordan and Jacob, do you want to go somewhere? Do you want to stay?
Yeah, can you send me to one of the like higher numbers?
Sure. We'll do that. All right, invite should be on its way.
And then you can just send me wherever is
wherever you have
Oh, I
it.
thought I sent you somewhere just now. It looks like I've tried to send you to room 8. Is that not showing up on your screen somewhere? Never mind. It seems that it was.
Ted Bozak just joined us.
Oh, hey, Ted. For those of us who might be live on YouTube, about 8 minutes or so, we'll convene with the larger group. Kinsey, would you like me to send a notification to all the breakout rooms that we'll reconvene in about 7 minutes?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All righty.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yep. Let's see, if you click on breakout rooms as an option on the bottom, you can say broadcast message to all. And I'll say in 7 minutes, we'll room. All righty.
Great, thank you.
And Jordan, just a reminder to restart the recording once we return.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for that reminder. Quite possible that I would have forgotten that.
It's very easy.
So I know that Christina just joined the main group. Folks are working in breakout rooms right now for another 4 minutes or so before they return to discuss broadly the things they've been talking about. Welcome, Christina. Hope you're doing well. Christina puts into the chat, having some tech issues on my end. After my own heart. That's quite all right. No big deal. I'll soon post a message to all the groups to say just about 3 more minutes or so, and then we'll bring you all back. Let's see. Jacob, do you want to make your way somewhere else or you're here to stay?
Is anybody in the breakout room 1?
Like any of our sort of staff folks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you there.
Okay.
So when we pull people out of breakout rooms, or when we say close them, there's a 60-second timer. Usually they keep going till the end of that 60-second timer because I think people would take it personally if they didn't go that whole 60 seconds, like they were, rejecting one another in their groups. With that said, so I guess soon we'll begin that 60-second timer. I want to hear what people have been talking about.
Kinsey,
Yeah,
you want all of these added to the PowerPoint that are in the chat?
I think I added most of them
Are
already.
you in the EDI or
Yeah.
in PowerPoint?
Yeah, the one in the EDI folder.
Yeah. Interesting. It's not showing up. I'm gonna close this and then go back in and maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to add anything else. I just,
Maybe it just wasn't populating. Yeah, it's not showing up on mine.
here, I'll email you these bullets real quick. I don't know why it's not showing up, but that's okay.
It may just not be syncing.
I know we only have 1 minute, but I made a thing
Oh,
in that time.
I love it.
That would be great. That's great for the future as well.
I'll put an actual timer on in the future. I just couldn't, my machine has so many windows open right now that it would not do the find a timer that fast.
I'm going to close down the breakout rooms. Folks will make their way back here within 60 seconds. I'm also going to begin the recording again. So, do whatever you got to do to, yeah.
I just emailed those to you, Dr. Graff.
Got it. I will go ahead and throw these in.
You are a sweetheart, Lindsay.
Let's see. Lindsay, we can probably take down the slide for now, as folks within 30 seconds will be joining us back here in the main room, but do not lose that slide. I love it. We will need it later, future.
I'll improve it though. Yeah.
Always improving. And at the point in time in which everyone's back, I do not really have any other involvement. Like for our authors, take it wherever you want to go. If you need me, let me know.
Cool. Should we wait? It looks like there's still some people. Oh, wait, maybe everyone's back now. Okay.
I am just now, hold on. Let's do that. All right. Go back into presenter mode.
Yes, I do believe that everyone from the breakout rooms are now back.
Okay, cool. I think
Just
Dr. Graff
get this.
re-put the PowerPoint back up there.
Yep.
Okay, so thanks everyone for participating in the breakout groups. I hope that was helpful, and I appreciate everyone's patience as we navigate our first virtual workshop here. So some of the things that kind of emerged, a lot of people really kind of focused in on the department level kind of climate, faculty, curriculum components of this. So demographic diversity of faculty not matching the students' diversity. And then how do we bridge that gap in the curriculum and mentorship that emerges because of that? Another interesting one that kind of came out a couple different times, the divide between new and tenured faculty in terms of their importance that they place on implementing these diversity changes and kind of their commitment to anti-racism and being more inclusive as a kind of key component of making students belong and kind of creating that psychologically safe environment for learning to occur. Decolonization of the curriculum, definitely important and difficult, especially if you're not getting kind of that buy-in that you need from other faculty in the department, and then also kind of the larger university level structures. So kind of thinking about this as a system and looking from like one of the most important things in terms of like the IO literature and what creates successful diversity changes is leadership buy-in, and then kind of the reduction of the structural barriers. So leadership buy-in and then kind of those structural considerations that will create opportunities for those things to occur. I'll open it up for Dr. Loftus and Dr. Graff if you guys have anything to add to this before we kind of move forward. Okay. Okay, so
I'm so sorry, y'all. I was reading the chat. I was like, oh, someone posted, and then I got all distracted. I was like, oh, I love that they're continuing this work. That's amazing. So when we wanted to think about the current climate and the timeliness, and I think from some of the groups that I was able to bounce in and out of, y'all mentioned a lot of the timeliness and of how either recent events that have garnered more sort of mainstream attention and sort of more calls to action than has been in the past, or sort of this restructuring that might be happening in our entire institution of higher education as related to COVID-19 has created a timeliness that might not have been there before, and sort of a sense of urgency that some of us might not have experienced in our institutions. And so we wanted to name that and to say when we're looking at our current climate, to be intentional and to create opportunities to center diversity. And we would add equity and inclusion on that. It is that intentionality and that any spaces that we're in is an opportunity for us to come in and center this work. Also, this idea of burn it down, you have to build it better. Not coming in, being intentional about not coming into spaces and challenging everything and saying this is all that's wrong, if we also can't be in those spaces to build it better. And I want to name that through a lens of privilege that I have, and through a lens of privilege that many folks have when we have capacity to build it better. But it is knowing our privilege and knowing that if we are not the folks who are being the most impacted by some of the experiences, then we have a responsibility to do the work and to stay in those spaces. When we look at support, we want to look at what kind of assessments are happening in response to COVID, especially at many institutions. We're talking about maybe budget reductions or budget cuts, or we're talking about reallocation of funds. In what way is diversity, equity, and inclusion being centered in those conversations through this restructuring? In what ways can we then center conversations around what is currently happening, and not letting it just be an afterthought? When hiring freezes will thaw, eventually, who are we going to hire? And who are you going to hire? And how will we all bring our voices and our intentions around diversity, equity, and inclusion to that? But also, while we're in hiring freezes, what sort of assessments are we doing within our departments, for our colleagues, within ourselves, in the environments that we currently have at our institutions? Because all of the feelings of unwelcome or the biases maybe within our departments have been there, and they will continue to be there unless we're intentionally changing them. And so how can we use the space that we have now, if we are in hiring freezes, to better that climate and to address some things head on now? How can you support your current colleagues? How can you collaborate and provide that level of support for them? And then we wanted to mention and name out loud quality over quantity. We want to do more than just be well-intentioned, and we want the work to be sustainable. And that is important to the work that we did together, and to the work that Dr. Graff and Dr. Bryant-Lees are going to continue to do throughout this whole framework, is looking at sustainability and looking at being more than just well-intentioned. And so build momentum. This might be a time to build momentum, or as some of you had mentioned in our breakout sessions, the momentum is there. Maybe it needs a little guidance so that it is going in a direction that seems a little bit more productive. Collaborate early on. This is a really big one, especially when you're collaborating across divisions, to not just say, oh, well, we've done all these things, but we need something, and we just need you for this very one small part. And then we're going to continue to take this amazing work that we're doing and doing it elsewhere, right? The collaboration is about coming to the table early and about getting insights and valuing folks and letting people in the collaboration feel valued early on. And I think that when we look at the partnership that the three of us had, that was absolutely there from present. They said, these are things we think we're experiencing. I said, these are things I've heard, and that's what sort of helped to frame the work that they, and that we took from that. And then some examples, y'all, some of the groups that I were in had really good examples, and somebody named student organizations. I have a student affairs background, so like I am a little bit biased, but I cannot overemphasize the importance of students, of student voice, and of our student organizations, because they are some of the biggest change makers and some of the biggest leaders that I have had are in our student organizations on campus. And so if you haven't been to events or programs, if you haven't, when they bring in keynote speakers or when they have, different events, go to those and just show up. Even if you feel awkward because you're like, I don't actually know a single person there, it does make a really big difference from the student perspective. Are you on hiring committees, or are you only invested in who you're hiring in your department, or what does that look like across the division? Dr. Bryant-Lees and Dr. Graff have built a relationship with the Center for Student Inclusiveness. And so the seats at the table can just keep the table just gets bigger. More seats get brought to the table. And so that investment of what is happening in the office and what is happening in the department, are there hiring committees that they can join that help to bridge and continue to build the relationships across that division?
We are at the end of our time here. I just want to very quickly say thank you for those of you who spent a Monday afternoon with us in the middle of all this chaos. A thank you to the College of Arts and Sciences and the Center for Student Inclusiveness. A thank you to our students who are taking time out of their work days, which I can't even imagine right now for their end, to be joining us. And if you have any questions or anything else that you would like to know, we put a couple of references up there, but we can plan on continuing this work and hopefully have some outcomes we can report to you in a future meeting.
All right, and I'd like to say thank you very much for everyone who joined us today, either in the Zoom or in the YouTube live stream. Continuing sessions all throughout the week, including game night hosted tonight by the Early Career Psychologist Committee. I know I see some of them in there right now. That's scheduled 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time. Go ahead and in your head convert that 6 to 7 Central Time, and then go wherever you are. Additionally, a session tomorrow at this same time, 12 to 1 in Central Time, our keynote presentation by Jane Hallinan. We're very excited about that. Thank you all for those who could join us either in the Zoom or on the YouTube live stream. Looking forward to seeing you all more soon this week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.